Jack it up.
One of the final murders that you committed, of course, was apparently little Kimberly Leach, 12 years of age. I think the public outcry is greater there because an innocent child was taken from a playground. What did you feel after that? Were there the normal emotions 3 days later? Where were you, Ted?
I can't really talk about that right now. That's weird.
It's too painful.
I would like to be able to convey to you what that experience is like, but I can't. I won't be able to talk about that.
Okay.
Ever wonder what goes on inside the mind of a serial killer? I mean, what could possibly drive someone to commit such horrific acts?
It's a question that's both fascinated and terrified people for centuries.
Right. It's like this dark puzzle. And that's exactly what we're diving into today on The Deep Dive from your friends here at Sassy Scoop TV.
Yep, we're back for episode 2.
I'm Alex.
And I'm Casey.
And today we're taking you on a pretty chilling journey into the psychology of serial killers. We're not just talking about the gore and the headlines here.
No.
We're going way deep.
We really want to understand the intricate workings of their minds. Like, what makes them tick?
Yeah, what makes them tick? It's a fascinating topic.
Totally. And disturbing.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Disturbing. But it raises a lot of questions about human nature,
Yeah.
Like good versus evil.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the very fabric of our society. Exactly. So let's just jump right in. First things first. What are the psychological traits that are often associated with serial killers? We always hear terms like, psychopath thrown around.
Right.
But what does that actually mean? Like, clinically speaking?
Okay, so psychopathy is a personality disorder, and it's characterized by a really distinct lack of empathy, remorse, guilt.
Wow.
They can be incredibly manipulative,
I bet.
and they often have this superficial charm.
Oh, so they could be very persuasive.
Exactly, and that makes it easy for them to gain the trust of others.
It's almost like they're wearing a mask.
Right.
Like blending in, appearing normal, but underneath they have these dark impulses.
Precisely, and this ability to mimic emotions and to manipulate others, that's often what makes them so dangerous.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
Because people let their guard down, they trust them,
Yeah.
and then bam.
Right.
So I know that not every serial killer is a psychopath. So are there other personality disorders or traits that are common in these individuals?
Absolutely. You often see antisocial personality disorder diagnosed.
Oh, ASPD.
Yeah, ASPD,
Okay.
which is a persistent disregard for social norms and the rights of others. They're impulsive, reckless, and they often, engage in criminal behavior.
So with psychopathy, it's more about a lack of empathy
Yeah.
and emotional depth.
Yeah.
But ASPD is more about a disregard for rules and just being impulsive.
That's a good way to put it. Think of it this way. So a psychopath might meticulously plan a murder
Right.
and feel no remorse.
Yeah.
Whereas someone with ASPD might act more impulsively, driven by rage or a need for instant gratification.
Oh, okay, I see.
Right.
That makes sense. It's unsettling to think about.
It is.
But it's important to understand these distinctions.
Right.
Now, what about sadism?
Mm.
Is that inherent to all serial killers, or is it more specific to certain types?
Sadism is definitely a common thread,
Okay.
but it's not always present.
Gotcha.
And the degree of sadism can vary a lot.
So some might get a sense of power and control from the act of killing, whereas others actually take pleasure in the suffering.
Exactly.
Wow. Okay. So for some, the act of killing is almost ritualistic,
Right.
like a way to, fulfill their fantasies and just exert ultimate control.
Yeah.
Okay. So we've talked about some of those key psychological traits, but now let's talk about childhood experiences and environment.
All right.
This is the big question. Do you believe serial killers are born or made?
Yeah.
Nature, nurture?
Or a combination of both.
Yeah, it's probably both, right?
It's a complicated question. Most experts agree that it's a combo. You might have some genetic predisposition
Okay.
towards certain traits, you
Yeah,
know?
like impulsivity or aggression.
Right. but those might never manifest.
Without the right triggers.
Exactly.
So it's kind of like a recipe.
I like that.
You might have all the ingredients for it, like a cake, but without the right oven temperature and baking time, it's not going to turn out right.
Exactly.
It's a good analogy.
Thanks.
So what kind of childhood experiences might contribute?
Oh, there are many.
I mean, we've all heard about the horrific abuse that some serial killers have endured, like Edmund Kemper.
Right.
Years of abuse at the hands of his own mother.
Right. It's awful. Severe trauma, especially in childhood, can just have a devastating impact
Yeah.
on a developing mind. Physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional abuse. They can create these feelings,
Uh-huh.
deep-seated,
Like rage, powerlessness.
and this desire for control.
It's almost like they're trying to regain some sense of power that was taken from them.
Yeah.
And sometimes that manifests in violence toward others.
Sadly, it can.
But it's not always about overt abuse.
Okay.
Sometimes it's the absence of something,
Right.
like love, stability, or even just like a secure attachment.
Yeah,
Neglect can be just as damaging as abuse.
absolutely. When a kid grows up in a chaotic, unpredictable environment, their perception of the world can get warped. And how they see relationships, they might develop like this deep-seated mistrust of people.
And that makes it hard to form bonds.
It does.
So it's like their emotional development gets stunted,
It can.
and they never learn those skills to have healthy attachments or regulate their emotions.
Exactly.
Without those foundational skills, it's got to be a lot harder to navigate, relationships
It is.
and society
Yeah.
and expectations.
Yeah. It's heartbreaking.
It really is. It makes you wonder if their lives could have turned out differently.
Yeah.
If they just had, that love and support.
Right. What if?
It's tough. But I think we can all agree that early intervention is key,
Oh, for sure.
and addressing childhood trauma is just essential
Yeah.
for preventing violence.
Yeah.
In all forms.
Absolutely.
Now, let's talk about types of serial killers. You mentioned that not all of them are psychopaths. So does that mean there are different categories?
There are. One way to classify them is by how organized they are. So you've got organized killers
Okay.
who are these meticulous planners. They often choose their victims really carefully. They maintain control of the crime scene. They try to cover their tracks.
So are these the stereotypical evil genius types?
Kind of. Yeah, they tend to be intelligent, very methodical, and really good at just blending in.
Okay, what about disorganized killers?
Disorganized killers are more impulsive, chaotic. Their crimes are usually messy, and they tend to, leave more evidence behind.
So their crimes are more about just acting on raw emotion
Yeah,
rather than careful planning.
exactly. Now, another way to categorize serial killers is by their motivation, and this can be a little trickier
Why is that?
because there's often some overlap.
Okay. So what are some of the common motivations?
Well, one of the most common is this need for power and control.
I can see that.
Yeah, these killers get a sense of satisfaction from dominating their victims. Often they use methods like restraints or torture.
So they really are trying to exert control over another human being.
They are.
And they want to feel that power,
Right.
which they probably lack in other areas of their lives.
It's very possible. You also have visionary killers who are driven by delusions or hallucinations.
Okay.
They might believe they're on some mission from God,
Oh, wow.
or they're ridding the world of evil.
So their crimes are more about this perceived higher purpose,
Exactly.
even if that purpose is totally delusional.
Right, right. And then you have mission-oriented killers, and they target specific groups, people they believe are undesirable,
Okay.
like a threat to society.
So they might target prostitutes or homeless people.
Yeah,
It's a scary thought.
it is. And lastly, there are hedonistic killers. They derive pleasure from the act of killing.
So for them, it's all about the thrill,
The excitement.
the gratification of their desires.
Yeah, and oftentimes there's a strong sexual component to their crimes.
It's so disturbing. But it is important to understand these motivations because it helps us to, make sense of these senseless acts.
I agree. By understanding the psychology, hopefully we can develop better strategies
Yeah.
for prevention and intervention.
I know we could talk about this all day.
We could.
But let's dive into some famous cases. Can we start with Ted Bundy?
Sure.
One of the most notorious serial killers in American history.
Ted Bundy is a fascinating and a very disturbing case study. He was intelligent, charming,
Yeah.
and on the surface, totally normal.
Right.
He used his charisma to lure victims. Often, he'd pretend to be injured. or that he needed help.
And he was so good at blending in.
He was.
He didn't fit that image of a serial killer.
Exactly. That's what made him so dangerous.
People trusted him.
Yeah, they did.
And he exploited that
He did.
in the most horrific way.
Right. His case is a really good example of how appearances can be deceiving. You just never really know
No, you don't.
what's going on in someone's mind.
So Bundy's case also brings up the role of psychopathy.
Yes, it does.
Right.
He was a textbook psychopath.
No empathy,
Yay.
no remorse,
Yay.
that sense of self-importance.
Yeah.
It's almost as if he thought he was better than everyone,
Yeah.
entitled to take what he wanted,
Yeah.
even if it meant taking a life.
He did. And that lack of empathy, combined with his intelligence and those manipulation skills,
Yeah.
made him a truly terrifying predator.
Let's talk about Jeffrey Dahmer.
Okay.
His crimes were just so horrific.
They were.
Necrophilia, cannibalism. He wanted to create these like zombie-like companions. What can we learn from his case?
Dahmer's case is, it's a look into the darkest parts of the human psyche.
I bet.
He was troubled from a young age.
Was he?
Yeah, he was fascinated with death. He started dissecting animals.
Wow.
And his fantasies just escalated.
Until it involved human victims.
Exactly.
Wow. So it's like his fantasies kind of took on a life of their own,
Yes.
blurring the lines between reality and his desires.
Yeah. And that desire for control was also a big factor. He wanted to, like, possess his victims
Absolutely.
even after death.
And that's where the necrophilia and the cannibalism came in.
Yeah, it was his way of trying to, like, keep them with him,
Wow.
to maintain control even after they were gone.
It's a disturbing thought,
It is.
but it seems like that was a driving force behind his actions.
It seems that way.
Now, I know we could keep going,
Yeah.
but for now, let's talk about the role of fantasy in serial killers.
Okay.
It's got to play a big role.
Fantasy plays a huge role
Yeah.
in how their behavior develops and escalates. It's a way for them to almost rehearse their crimes,
Oh, wow.
to kind of desensitize themselves to the violence, to explore their desires.
So they create this world in their mind
Right.
where their fantasies become a reality.
And they have ultimate control.
And for some, these fantasies become so consuming
Right.
that they feel like they have to act them out.
They do.
So what starts as a thought or image in their head, it can become something much more dangerous.
It can. And oftentimes these fantasies, they get worse.
Yeah.
What might start as something kind of harmless
Yeah.
becomes more extreme.
More violent.
Right.
That's terrifying. It makes you wonder, like, how many people out there might be harboring these dark fantasies
Right.
without ever acting on them?
Yeah.
And how can we tell the difference?
I mean, that's a question that psychologists and criminologists, they're still trying to figure it out.
We've covered a lot.
We have.
From psychological traits
Yeah.
to childhood experiences, and now this, like, chilling role of fantasy.
Yeah,
But we've only scratched the surface. This is just the beginning of our deep dive.
it is.
We're going to go even deeper.
We will.
We're going to talk about more real-life cases,
Yes.
the challenges of profiling,
Uh-huh.
and we'll look at how these crimes affect victims,
Yes.
families, communities.
Right.
It's a heavy conversation, but an important one.
It is.
So stay tuned.
Please do.
And join us for part 2 of our deep dive into the minds of serial killers. For now, we want to hear from you. What do you think about this nature versus nurture debate? What aspects of serial killer psychology are most intriguing to you? Or maybe the most disturbing? Head to the comments.
Yes.
Share your thoughts. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more deep dives from your friends here at Sassy Scoop TV. We'll see you on part 2.
You're watching Sassy Scoop TV. If you're enjoying this podcast, don't forget to check out more of our videos for exciting content. And if you like this one, hit the like button, subscribe to our channel, and drop a comment below. We would love to hear from you.
Welcome back to the deep dive. We're continuing our journey, our exploration into the minds of serial killers.
Yeah, I gotta say, this is both fascinating and unsettling. You know,
It is.
it's like we're peering into these dark corners of human nature, trying to make sense of the unthinkable.
It is unsettling. But it's really important to remember knowledge is power. The more we understand these individuals, what drives them, the better equipped we are to prevent these tragedies.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's easy to, I don't know, get lost in the sensationalism of it all, but ultimately it's about saving lives.
It is. It is. So let's delve into some real-life cases that have really shaped our understanding.
Okay, well, if we're talking infamous cases, we have to start with Jack the Ripper.
All right.
We do. I mean, this is the case that captivated the world. It's the one that really gave birth to this whole concept of a serial killer.
It did, yeah. Jack the Ripper terrorized London back in 1888, brutally murdered at least 5 women, all prostitutes. What makes this case so compelling, even after all these years, is the mystery.
Yeah, no one knows who he was.
No one knows.
It's a real-life horror movie, you know?
It is.
Like the fog, the streets of London, the gruesome crimes, and this unknown killer. It really captured the imagination.
It did, and even though they never caught him, his case was a turning point in criminal investigations. It was one of the first times they really tried to understand the psychology.
So they were looking for patterns, clues, anything that could give them insight into his mind.
Yes, exactly. It was the beginning of what we now call criminal profiling.
Oh, wow.
They were trying to create a psychological sketch.
Based on his actions.
Yes.
It's amazing to think how much forensic science and criminal profiling have advanced since then.
Right.
But even today, people are still fascinated by Jack the Ripper.
They are. It's a reminder that some mysteries, well, they might never be solved, but it's that pursuit of understanding that's what keeps us searching.
Okay, let's fast forward now
Okay.
to the 20th century. Let's talk about Ted Bundy,
Okay.
one of America's most notorious serial killers.
Ted Bundy.
Hmm.
His case is the textbook example of how looks can be deceiving.
Right. He was handsome, charming, intelligent. I mean, he didn't fit the stereotype
It didn't.
of a monster at all.
And that's what made him dangerous, right?
Absolutely. He gained their trust because he just seemed so normal.
Yes. He used his charisma, often pretended to be injured, in need of help. It's a reminder that evil can wear many masks.
Yeah, it can.
Bundy's case also highlights psychopathy. He lacked empathy, he lacked remorse, and had this huge sense of self-worth.
Yeah, he was a master manipulator. He could blend in with society so easily.
He could.
It made him really hard to catch.
And his case sent shockwaves, really, because he challenged our assumptions about what a serial killer looks like.
It made everyone question everything.
It did. It forced us to confront this reality that darkness can be right there under the surface.
Even to the most charming people. Another case that really got to me was Jeffrey Dahmer. His crimes were so depraved. I mean, the necrophilia, cannibalism, it's almost beyond belief.
Dahmer's case shows us just how dark the human mind can go. He wanted to possess his victims, even in death, which led him down a path of just unimaginable horror.
It's like he was trying to create this own world
Right.
where he had total control, and his victims would be with him forever,
Yeah.
even if it meant, like, turning them into something inhuman.
It's disturbing. Dahmer's case brings up a lot of questions about mental illness. He was a deeply disturbed individual.
Yeah, but mental illness doesn't excuse his actions.
Right.
He was responsible for his choices.
He was. But it does raise these questions about how we address mental health issues. How do we identify and help people who are struggling before they get to that point?
Before it's too late.
Okay, let's talk about John Wayne Gacy, the killer clown.
Gacy. His case is a chilling example of living a double life.
Yeah, hiding your true self behind this mask of normalcy.
He was successful, respected, entertained children.
As a clown,
Yes. But underneath, he was a sadistic killer.
who murdered at least 33 young boys and men.
Yes.
It's just the level of deception.
It's disturbing.
It's scary. He used his position of trust to gain access to his victims. It makes you realize you never really know what's going on behind closed doors.
You don't. And his case highlights compartmentalization.
How you can separate parts of your life.
Right.
Keep your secrets hidden.
And it's a reminder that appearances can be deceiving.
Evil hides in plain sight.
Yeah.
Speaking of normal, let's talk about Dennis Rader,
Okay.
the BTK killer.
His case is fascinating because it spans decades.
From his first murders in the 70s, all the way to his arrest in 2005.
And he was so meticulous,
Yeah.
so methodical. I mean, he stalked his victims.
Sent those taunting letters.
Yeah.
He reveled in the terror.
His nickname, BTK, it stands for bind, torture, kill.
It does.
What I find most disturbing about Rader is he was able to live a seemingly normal life.
He was.
He's a family man, a church leader,
an ordinary guy.
but it reminds us that evil can be anywhere,
It can be.
even in the most unexpected places.
Right. And the people closest to us can have dark secrets.
Rader's case also shows how important forensic science is
It does.
to solving these crimes.
It was DNA that led to his capture.
That's amazing.
And it shows how far forensic technology has come.
So we've talked a lot about male serial killers, and statistically they are the majority.
Mm-hmm.
But we can't forget about female serial killers.
We can't. They exist.
Aileen Wuornos,
Aileen Wuornos.
a prime example.
She was convicted of killing 7 men.
In Florida.
Yes, between 1989 and 1990.
And her case was really controversial
It was.
because she claimed she killed in self-defense.
You're right.
She said her victims were clients who assaulted her.
While she was working as a prostitute,
Yeah.
it's a tough one.
Regardless of what happened, it's important to acknowledge that women serial killers, they often have different motivations and methods.
They do. They tend to be less physically violent. They use methods like poisoning.
Or suffocation.
Yes,
And their motives are more complex.
they are.
Sometimes it's revenge.
Sometimes financial gain.
Sometimes a twisted sense of justice.
It's true. And it's a good reminder that we can't make generalizations about serial killers.
Right.
Every case is unique.
Absolutely.
The motivations are complicated.
Before we wrap up this part, let's go back to fantasy.
Okay.
We touched on it earlier, but I think we need to explore it more.
All right. So fantasy is crucial
Yeah.
for the development and escalation of this violent behavior. It's how they rehearse, how they desensitize, how they explore those dark desires.
It's their own world.
Right.
Where those fantasies become real,
And they can escalate.
become more elaborate, more violent. And that's the danger, right?
It is.
That these fantasies can fuel this desire to act.
Yes.
So for investigators, they have to understand fantasy. They have to look at a suspect's writings, their drawings, their internet searches, anything that might give a glimpse into their mind.
Yes.
All right.
It helps assess the risk, helps them intervene maybe.
Potentially, before a crime is committed.
Possibly.
But not everyone who has violent fantasies acts on them, right?
True, that's true.
But for those who are prone to violence, for those who lack empathy, fantasy can be a trigger.
Yes.
So can we even identify the people who are most likely to act?
Can we intervene early enough? These are questions researchers and experts are still trying to answer.
It's a tough one.
It is. But one thing is for sure, understanding the role of fantasy is crucial if we want to prevent these horrific crimes.
I want to take a moment to just acknowledge the victims.
I think that's important.
We can't forget that behind every case, behind every headline, are real people
Yes.
who have suffered unimaginable loss.
Their families, their friends, everyone is left to deal with the pain, the trauma.
It's senseless. And we can't forget that these cases are not just stories.
Right.
These are real lives lost, dreams that are shattered.
It affects so many.
And while we may never understand the darkness that drives these acts, we can honor the victims by learning from these tragedies, by working towards a world where these horrors happen less. And as we've been discussing these cases, I keep thinking about prevention.
Yeah.
Like, what can we do as a society to stop this from happening?
That's the goal, right? But it's a tough one. I think, though, one of the most important things is early intervention.
So recognizing the warning signs,
Yes.
the red flags
Right.
that a kid might be on a dangerous path.
We know that a lot of serial killers, they show disturbing behaviors in childhood.
Yeah.
Animal cruelty, fire setting, bedwetting, the McDonald triad.
Right, the McDonald triad.
Yeah.
But aren't those kind of normal to some degree in childhood?
To some degree, yes.
I mean, kids test boundaries.
They do. But when it's persistent, when you see other signs too, aggression, lack of empathy, being withdrawn, that's when it's a concern.
So it's not about labeling every kid who does one of these things
Right.
as a potential serial killer.
No.
It's about recognizing patterns
Yes.
and then intervening when you see a real problem.
It's about support,
Yeah.
therapy,
Resources.
resources for families and for the kids who need it.
And creating a culture where people feel like they can speak up
Yeah.
if they see something that's not right,
We got to break the stigma around mental health.
for sure. We need to be a community where seeking help is a good thing, a sign of strength, not weakness.
I agree.
So early intervention is vital. But what about law enforcement?
Yeah.
What can they do to be better at identifying and catching these killers?
Well, think about forensic science. I mean, the advancements have been incredible. DNA technology has really changed everything. I mean, now you can link crimes based on DNA.
It must have solved so many cases that have been cold forever.
I think so. And now you can create these profiles of the perpetrators.
You can see the patterns, their behavior.
Right.
But technology isn't enough on its own, is it?
No, it's not.
You still need good detectives.
Yeah. Interviewing witnesses, following the leads, putting the pieces together,
Yeah. And you need investigators who get it.
who understand the psychology.
Yeah, who can, like, think like them,
Anticipate what they're going to do.
and then use that to catch them.
Exactly.
So it's a combo, science, technology, and psychological knowledge.
It is a puzzle,
It is.
but every piece we find helps.
We've covered so much today.
Yeah.
Some really dark stuff.
Heavy.
But this is an important conversation.
I think so too.
It's easy to avoid these topics.
Oh,
But understanding evil, that's how we fight it.
the first step.
We may never truly understand what creates a serial killer,
No.
but we can learn from these cases.
We can.
We can do better.
We can. And we can work towards a safer world.
Absolutely. Well, this has been a fascinating, albeit chilling, deep dive into the minds of serial killers. We hope you found it insightful, maybe even a little thought-provoking.
And a little scary.
Yeah, definitely a little scary. But that's the nature of the beast, right?
It is.
Remember, knowledge is power. And by understanding this darkness, we can better protect ourselves and our communities.
So stay informed, stay vigilant, and as always, stay curious.
If you have any thoughts or questions about what we've discussed, head over to the comments section below. We always love hearing from you. And if you enjoyed this deep dive, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more from your friends here at Sassy Scoop TV. Until next time, stay safe out there.